So you'll know from a recent video of mine that the camera in this game can have issues when locking onto things. It's pretty bad, and a little bit funny, and I made a joke comparing the game to Dark Souls 2, which has similarly poor lock-on priority. Now unfortunately I wish that was the only instance of it doing that, but it's actually been a really common problem. After careful observation, I see now what at least causes the lock-on to whiff the intended target so hard that it feels as if it was programmed by a bunch of monkeys slamming on a keyboard. So, even without hitting L3 to lock onto enemies, the camera does still lock to an extent. It'll show a cursor above an enemy with their name and health bar at the top of the screen. I'll call this the game's soft lock, not to be confused with the soft locks that used to happen from previous updates. So now it's the cursor of the soft lock that determines what the reticle of the hard lock targets when you hit L3. If you watch closely, you'll see the reason why the camera tends to lock onto targets that are completely off screen, either to the side or behind you, is because this cursor likes to linger in favor on enemies that you're passing, even if they're off screen, instead of enemies that are directly in front of you, in front of the camera, or a mix of the two, which would be a more intuitive experience. For some reason, the cursor wasn't programmed to update targets very frequently, so it hardly keeps track of the targets that are directly in front of you. This is especially bad if you like using sword skills in the air for fast movement, because some property of this game prevents the cursor from updating to a new enemy while you're using a sword skill, and it'll often take away your ability to lock onto an enemy at all while performing one, even if the enemy is directly in range and you're mashing L3 for the entire duration of the sword skill. So if you do like using sword skills in the air to move faster, you're gonna have a real fun time trying to lock onto enemies in front of you because the cursor just does not like to update targets while you're doing that. And now if you move slowly you won't notice any of this, but with faster gameplay, which the game practically demands of dual wielders, it becomes grossly apparent that the camera simply cannot keep up, leading to what you're seeing here. It, again, is a very poor design choice that causes the camera to target enemies you wouldn't naturally expect to be targeting as you're running through a heavily populated area. You want it to be targeting threats in front of you that you're actively approaching, rather than enemies that you're passing in your peripheral. Now I still find this game very fun, seeing how it's pretty much the only thing that I'm playing for the channel right now and have been for a while. So don't get me wrong when I say that mechanically, this is a bad game, and overall, I give it a 4 out of 10. It has fun gameplay and cool mechanics, even if it weren't an SAO game, but the way that some of the mechanics are implemented, or how many of them are held together, is very shoddy and it feels unstable to the point of total inconsistency and unreliability. At this point I could probably make a video listing all of them with video instances, but I've already caught them in several videos as it is, and I mean, this is a video on just one of them. Overall, I say it's best to just enjoy the game and try not to expect too much or be surprised by the many issues it has that serves to break the smooth flow that its gameplay would otherwise have. And maybe try to take the combat a little bit slower than me, because pushing this game's engines to its limits really highlights its shortcomings.